everybody doing today? Hope you are doing all right. Welcome once again to these webinars that are held by ASOCOPI. And so hopefully if you are here is because you either received the information from the ASOCOPI emails, not only the emails from ASOCOPI, but also our personal emails. All the board of directors of ASOCOPI are submitting the emails because there is like a lot of emails that are bouncing back. So we are making sure that everybody is getting the links for you to be able to connect. So if you know someone who hasn't been able to connect, please share the link. Also, if you are connected, means that you could have found this link in all the social media, not only Facebook, but also I saw in LinkedIn and various others. So please, once again, make sure that you are sharing that link right away with all your contacts so that they also can learn about the topic for today. Okay, so with further wait on anybody else, we're gonna start up for today. Our guest speaker is Marta Ramirez. Most of us know her from our ELT community in the country. She's been really leading in various aspects, not only about teaching, also flipped learning and various other topics. So, so the idea would be for her to tell us something new. And so she's gonna share with us something maybe we have not heard or seen from her in that field yet that much, but we're going to enjoy and learn a lot. As usual, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Write them down. We are going to be also connected with YouTube and also if basically with YouTube. And if you find or if you know someone who's connected in the is still using the Zoom link, tell them to please join us in this link with YouTube. So please write down all your questions. If we don't answer to them right away, don't worry about it. We're going to collect them all, and at the end, Marta is going to answer all your questions. Take notes. Make sure that you are following. If you have any questions, just like once again, make sure that you're writing them down. So with further wait, just like let's start. Marta, the floor is yours. Once again, thank you very much on behalf of ASOCOPI. Thank you for your support as usual. And of course, thank you very much for this webinar.
Okay, thank you, Dave. All right, hi everybody. Thank you for connecting. I'm really happy to be here virtually with you and to participate in the webinars that ASOCOPI is doing for English teachers in Colombia and around the world. I see there are some people connected from a lot from Colombia, but also from other countries. So welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm also very happy to see a lot of colleagues and friends connected today. So I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to share my screen. All right, I'm going to talk to you about communicating with a growth mindset. And okay, so we're going to get started. Okay, and well, I'm going to introduce myself formally. My name is Marta Ramirez. I am an English teacher and a teacher educator in Bogota, Colombia. I work as an English teacher for Los Andes University, and I also work in teaching programs with UPTC. I know there are some former students and colleagues here connected today, and also with WIS. I work with WIS and I work with Externado. So today what I want to talk to you about is communicating with a growth mindset. It's a topic that I have been researching for the past year and a half. And I will be telling you a little more in detail what this is about. But I want to tell you what the agenda is. So I'll be describing what I mean when I talk about mindset or mindsets. I will mention some key information about the research that I've worked on in this regard. And well, the main focus of this webinar is talking about how the way that we communicate has a direct impact on, of course, on our students, but our mindset is what will lead to how we communicate in one way or another. And I will be talking about particularly self-talk, right? Like our internal discourse. I will be talking about praise, and I will be talking about feedback. So let's get started with mindsets. So when I talk about mindset, or when people say, well, what is this mindset that you're talking about? It's our beliefs about different things. And these beliefs have a direct effect on how we act, on how we talk, and, well, the things that we do in our professional life, academic life, personal life. So here are some key questions of what this mindset, or where our mindset is, and what it affects. So how you see yourself, right, as a person, as an educator, as a daughter, as a son, etc. How you see your students, what attitude you have as a teacher in different types of contexts, how you assume challenges, which is this is an important aspect that I will mention a little more in detail, and how we teach and how we learn, right? So our beliefs have a direct impact on the decisions that we make, pedagogical decisions, right? How we acknowledge faults and strengths, or how we accept errors, for example, how we receive criticism, and the focus of today, how we communicate. So there's a lady called Carol Dweck, and well, here you see a picture of me with Carol Dweck. And Carol, well, I had the opportunity to meet Carol last year in Chicago, and we talked a little bit. I told her what I was doing with mindset. And for those of you who are familiarized with this last name, Dweck, Carol Dweck is a professor at Stanford University, and she's the one that has been doing all the research, or like all the research about mindset. And she's the one who coined the terms growth and fixed mindset. So I want to tell you a little more what this means. So Carol Dweck, in 2006 she published a book called Mindset, where her work on mindset came out to the public, right? Came out to the world. And what she says is that we have two types of mindsets. We have a growth mindset, where the belief of intelligence and qualities that we have connect to the idea that they can be developed, right? But they can be developed with effort, perseverance, support, strategies, and dedication. Okay, this is important because when we talk about growth mindset, it is not just, I believe that I can change and that's it. No, you can believe you can change, but you need to put in the time, the effort, the perseverance, etc., right? The strategies. And then there's a fixed mindset, which is the absolute opposite, right? That intelligence and qualities are fixed. It's probably can't be changed much. And so something she says that's really important and to keep in mind here while I'm talking to you about communication is that we have both of these mindsets, and one mindset or the other appear in different types of situations. What are these situations? Dweck says there are 5 key situations where the mindsets start appearing. In situations of criticism, sorry for the typo there, challenges, when other people are successful, when people we know become successful, obstacles, and effort. So I'm going to give you some examples of basically what we tend to think regarding some of these. So we have green for growth and red for fixed, or pink for fixed. So in a growth mindset, we could say something like, I can't do that yet, right? And in a fixed, we would say, I can't. Nope, sorry, can't do that. No, I can't. When we talk about our limits, a fixed mindset would say, no, I know my limits, so I'm not going to try. Like, I'm not even going to try. I know my limits. A growth mindset would say, I'm going to test my limits. The same with skills, right? Believing that my skills can't change. For example, sorry, I can't cook. I can't drive. I can't draw, right? So that I can't is that belief like I just, it's fixed, I can't do it, I never learned it, that's it, right? And the other is I can develop it. I can't cook yet, but I mean, I think I could take a course and learn how to do it. Also regarding challenges, avoiding a challenge or seeking a challenge. Avoiding errors or evaluating errors. So especially in academia, we have a lot of situations where the mindsets appear of, you know, can I make mistakes with my students? Or, you know, what are my colleagues going to say if I make a mistake? Versus, okay, if I make a mistake, what can I learn from this? And if I make a mistake, well, I'm human. Of course I can make a mistake. That's how we learn it, right? And that's how we grow. And regarding feedback, well, how do I receive feedback? Do I receive it in a fixed mindset as criticism? Do I feel threatened when somebody gives me feedback about something that I need to improve? Or do I receive it as information to continue growing and improving my practice? So, well, this is like the basis. Of course, there's a lot more. There's a lot more about mindset. But because we're going to focus it on communication, I want to tell you a little bit of, you know, why am I talking about mindset? So with a group of wonderful educators and the research group of bilingualism and multilingualism at Universidad de los Andes, we worked on a project that that required designing a workshop about mindset for educators in the public school sector here in Bogota. And what we did was we collected data to determine if this workshop had an effect on their mindsets and, well, their actions, right? So in this picture, you can see Isabel Tejada, Paula Garcia, Yvonne Chipatequa, and Marcela Guzman. And so the 5 of us worked in this project for a year, more than a year. And we've already finished it. And I will share some information about this through the chat. So what we did, just to give you a main idea, is we designed a workshop of 7 weeks. It was 21 hours and divided in 7 weeks. So it was 7 sessions. And we taught this workshop, or well, I taught this workshop to 15 public school teachers. And here you could see some of the topics. But you will notice that session 5 and session 6 were focused on language and feedback, right? Effective feedback within a growth mindset and language in a growth mindset. And so this was phase 1. Phase 1 was, okay, I'll teach the workshop, we'll collect data, and then we'll see, you know, and then we'll analyze the data from this workshop and see what happens in teachers' specific context. So phase 2 was the observation phase. So from the 15 teachers, we had 5 volunteer teachers, and we observed their classes. We had a specific rubric with criteria based on growth mindset characteristics and, well, of course, based on research we've read and experts that have been working in mindset in education. We gave them individual feedback. We interviewed them. And then there was like a second round of class observation where what we wanted to see is, okay, if they're receiving feedback of the effect of their mindsets in their classes, you know, what's going to happen the second time around. So we did a second observation and you could see the whole cycle. But the second, in stage 2, we also collected surveys from students. We interviewed the teacher again, and then we had group feedback. And so, well, there was a lot more data and a lot more information. So if you're interested, you could read more about the research. I'm actually going to paste this in, let me see. I can do this actually directly into the chat. So if you want to read more about the research, I wrote a blog post. And this blog post, well, it's a synthesis of the research while our article is published. So let me see if it goes out. All right. Okay, so you should be receiving the short link to the blog post. So this can give you a little more detail. And of course, if well, you have questions, we can also be in touch. But I don't want to go too much in depth in this research process, basically because the focus is communication. So, all right. So one of the key findings, we had different findings, but one of the key findings of this research project was communication. And basically, we could see from the workshops, from the different sessions, that there was already, there was a change, like a visible change in teachers' discourse. They started to change how they were talking, how they were, like regarding praise, feedback, etc. But we could also see this on the interviews, and we interviewed teachers throughout the workshop, and of course, as you saw in the cycle, we also interviewed the teachers that we observed. So this was like a very important point, and that's why today I want to talk to you about communication. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, communication is going to be divided into self-talk, praise, and feedback. And when we talk about self-talk, well, it's, how we talk to ourselves, right? So when we're in a situation, we're like, oh, there's things that we say to ourselves. It's like our internal discourse, right? Or our internal, it has another term. I can't think of it right now, but okay, it's internal discourse. And so I'm going to give you some examples, and I actually found this this example that connects to what we're living right now. And this was thanks to a tweet from a fellow colleague who she tagged me on Twitter. And it is, okay, so how can we see the mindsets in what we're living right now, and what can we say to each other? We're like this self-talk, right? So we could say, for example, COVID-19 is making people really sick, and it's like, oh my God, this is a really complex situation that we're living right now. And so our fixed mindset, remember, we have both of the mindsets. So the fixed mindset could say, I'm scared, I'm worried, it's out of control, and then, we can get anxious, we can get paralyzed, like so many things that come from what we're saying to ourselves, right? But the growth mindset could tell you, okay, yes, of course I'm scared, of course I'm worried. However, I'm going to stay well informed. I'm going to try to understand what's going on, and I'm going to see, like how this can impact my personal life, my family, etc. So the fixed mindset fixes you in that position, right? And the growth mindset takes you a little further, right? And then here they mention, this is from makersempire.com, innovation mindset. So it's like, okay, so your mindset is telling you, you can stay well informed. What are you going to do? Okay, I can use the information, right? Learn from it, etc. So this is just an example of that self-talk within our current situation. And well, I'm going to give you other examples. So the fixed mindset could tell me, what if I can't do this, right? We're in a current situation that has required a learning curve that I think none of us had had to go through, at least, not with this situation, right? And so some of us might be thinking, our fixed mindset might be saying to us, what if I can't do this? What if I can't do this? Or no, I can't do this. I don't know how to use Zoom. I don't know how to use WebEx. I don't know. Yeah, I can't do it. And then it's that whole feeling of I'm scared and anxiety, etc. Or, our growth mindset could appear and say, what if I can? I should give it a try. Remember the difference of, knowing the limits versus testing your limits. So here, this is that testing yourself, and how self-talk, is going to influence directly on how we act. So I'm going to propose a reflection activity, and I'm going to show you some common phrases, like common things that we say to ourselves. And I want you to think, and you could actually write this in the chat, but it's, is this a fixed comment, or is it a growth comment? All right. So I'm going to show it to you. You can write in the chat what you think the answer is. I'll show you the response, and then we'll continue. We'll do this with some real life examples that we hear, or that we say to ourselves commonly. Common expression, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Is this a fixed or is this a growth? Okay, I see that Isabel is connected. Isabel is, I introduced her to you through she's in the growth mindset group, research group, Isabel Tejada. So if you see her in the chat, she's gonna support, she's gonna support me. And then at the end, she'll help me with the questions. All right. Okay. So we have fixed, right? Can't teach an old dog new tricks. And we have, we have our own expression in Spanish, no? Loro viejo no aprende a hablar. So, right, it is a fixed expression. We hear it a lot. People connect it to age. But, when we go further into understanding how mindset works and how the brain works, and we learn about, neuroplasticity and like other deeper understanding of how learning really works, then we know that this is not true. I will never be as good as that teacher. So let's think of situations where, we have our colleagues, and there are some colleagues that are really good, like wonderful educators. Maybe we're in a different level. Maybe we're in a different process. What do we say to ourselves? Do we say, I will never be as good as that teacher? Do we say something else? Okay. And here, well, it is a fixed phrase, right? Why? Because I'm categorizing myself, or I'm labeling myself as a bad teacher, or not as good as. Like, I'm already fixing my position and saying, you know what? No, I'm just never going to get there, right? All right, next one. I'm going to try something new. If it doesn't work out, I will improve and try again. Growth or fixed? Answer? Okay, so I know you're chatting. You're responding in that chat. Next one, my students performed poorly on this test. Obviously, they weren't listening. Fixed or growth? Growth or fixed? And this is common. This is a common expression that we hear. The answer is that it's a fixed expression. And the reason it's a fixed expression is not because students obviously weren't listening. Maybe they weren't, right? But it's how my own self-talk about my students places me in a position, right? Like in a fixed position of, it's their fault, not mine, right? So the growth self-talk would be, my students performed poorly, on this test. Maybe there's something I'm missing, right? Or maybe there's something that I didn't explain clearly. I'm going to check myself, right? That's where the growth mindset appears. Checking yourself before assuming or blaming our students, that it's their fault, and maybe it's our fault. It might not be our fault, but through the growth mindset, we start there. Okay? I will approach this year taking each student into account. All students can be taught. It's a matter of finding the right approach. So the answer to this one is, it's a growth mindset self-talk. And this connects with what Brock and Hundley mention about teacher characteristics. One of the teacher characteristics of a growth mindset educator is having high expectations. So here we could see through my self-discourse, or through my self-talk, I have those high expectations, right? Okay. Name, fulanito, fulanita, gets all the recognition because he or she is a total suck-up and glory seeker. Has anybody ever heard this expression in academia? Or the more common would be, fulanito or fulanita is such a show-off, right? So there are expressions, as some of you guessed it, it's a fixed mindset approach. And this one connects to, remember Dweck mentioned the 5 key situations, and this one connects a lot to success of others. So if I see a colleague being very successful, do I feel threatened? And, of course, it must be because, she's a suck up or he's a suck up, or it must be because she or he is a show off, instead of, maybe they're actually really sharing. Maybe there is, I'm not labeling them as something, but going a little further. Okay. All right. Next one, my students didn't connect with this lesson. How could I make it more engaging for them? So, response, growth. I'm not blaming them. I'm, looking at myself and saying, okay, what can I do? Right? They didn't connect. Was it them or was it me? Might be them. But, starting with reflection of my own teaching is what's going to allow me to grow more in this context or in this connection or in this relationship with my students. Right? We've always done it this way. I'm sure, I know there's a lot of teachers, or there are teachers here from different contexts, right? From university, school context, but I'm sure you've heard this one a lot. And, we've always done it this way means there is no other way. There is no possibility. We are fixed on how we've done it always, yeah? And, well, regarding receiving feedback, my coordinator marked needs improvement in my teaching evaluation. I must not be a good teacher. So similar to some of the examples we've seen, this is fixed, right? I'm labeling myself as a bad teacher. Instead of, my coordinator mark needs improvement. I'm going to check in detail, what the comments were to see how I can continue improving as an educator, right? Great job. You're smart. This is praise, and this is connected to what I will be talking to you about in a few minutes. Is this a fixed or is this a growth? I'm going to just leave a couple of seconds. All right. And the response is, this is a fixed mindset praise. I will explain in more detail why, but this is so common. This is how we tend to praise. Great job. Good job. Excellent. You're smart. You're intelligent, etc. And we should be going further, but I'll go in detail on why this is fixed in case some of you are surprised. You made a bad choice. What will you do differently in the future? This is an example of feedback. And the response between fixed or growth is that this is a growth mindset response. Because it's honest, you made a bad choice, it's the truth. You made a bad choice, and I'm asking a question that will take you to analyze what you can do to improve, right? Instead of, you're a bad student, yes? Like kind of to make the contrast, all right? Okay, I'm not creative, I can't do artistic things. I already gave examples with this one, so I know you know that this is a fixed mindset response or self-talk, right? Because I'm not creative, or really? I mean, like, is creativity a fixed skill, or is it a fixed trait that people there are some people who are creative and some who are not? No, creativity is developed. Being an artist is something that people develop, right? I won't go into, in depth, but we do have something called natural bias. And Angela Duckworth talks about this, and she wrote a book about grit. And she says, we're so used to, understanding that creativity and talents are natural, because the world has sold it to us, that it, we tend to say these type of things because we think, no, there are people who are musical. Well, other people can become musical if they study music, if they put in the effort, the perseverance, they receive the support, they have the strategies, they put in the time. Of course, you can become a singer. Of course, you can become an artist or whatever, right? It doesn't mean, my mindset does not mean you can become whatever you want to be. No. Mindset means you need to recognize, number one, that you can develop certain skills, abilities, etc., but you need to work for it to get there. Okay, that's important to keep in mind. All right. So some tips. I'm going to be giving you some tips. The tip about self-talk is, well, first of all, recognize your self-talk, okay, and your mindset. So even though this is a very short presentation, I think some of you have already, recognized some things that you tend to say to yourself, and whether if it's in a fixed mindset or in a growth mindset. So recognizing that is the first step, okay? And here's like some examples of language of impossibility, right? Within a fixed mindset, like I have never done, no, I have never done that. I'm not going to do that, or we have always done it this way. We saw that one. And I don't think I can do this. Versus, oh, I've never done that, but, how could this be an opportunity for me to learn something new, for example? Or why not try something different? Yes, of course we've always done it this way. Why don't we try something different? And the yet, right? I can't do this yet, but, I might take a course and learn how to do it. All right? In terms of praise, there are 3 types of praise. And here, what I'm going to share with you is focused on Nottingham and Larson's work. At the end, I'll share, the references that I'm talking about. And they say, okay, so praise is divided in person praise, product praise, and process praise. So let me give you some examples. Person praise. You're smart. You are so talented. You're an excellent student, right? We're praising the person, you, right? I'm saying that you are smart, you are talented, you are an excellent student. But the focus is on the person. And then we have product praise, focusing on the task. You completed the task. Great job. Your answers are correct. You presented an excellent activity. Here, I'm not saying you are excellent. I'm saying your activity was excellent, right? I'm not saying you are correct. I'm saying your answers were correct, etc., right? And then we have process praise, where we go a little further. So great way to show your creativity. Here I'm focusing on the action, okay? Process praise focuses on actions. You played very well in the game. You showed application of the strategies learned in class. Awesome. So here I'm focusing on the action. And so just to mention one study that has been like important in this process, Kamens and Dweck, they did a study with students, with kids, to see their response to failure. And so what they did was they divided the groups, and they had a group of students who received person praise, a group of students who received product praise, and a group of students who received process praise. And so what they found, and on this continuum, let's say, of competence, incompetence, and competence, what they found is when they praised the person, students stopped making an effort. So if the student did a good job and they said, you're smart, what happened was that the student, said, well, I'm smart, so why am I going to make an effort? Because I'm smart. Like, I'm already smart. I don't need to, do anything else to get this done, right? So what they saw in the different activities is that the person praised students stopped making an effort, and so their response to failure was bad. Yes, when they started failing, they stopped making the effort, they started failing, and then they had a terrible response to failure and they got frustrated, right? They're like, I'm smart, but if they told me I'm smart and I'm not doing it, then that means I'm not smart. Yeah, and that's what happens when the praise is focused on the person. And something that happens a lot in education is that we label students, right? So, I mean, this doesn't have to do necessarily with praising, but it does have to do with our discourse towards students. And it is, are we labeling them? Are we saying, like, this is the smart kid, the slow kid, the gifted one? Labeling does the same thing that praising does to students. When the praise was in the product, they had a better response to failure, but the best response to failure was when the praise was focused on the process. So, well, when should we praise? And I'll give you the tips. When should we praise? When students are not in their comfort zone. Okay, when they're all cozy, you know, like, oh, I could do this with my eyes closed, like if I was sleeping, type of situation. That is not when we should be praising. We shouldn't be praising students because they can do something easily. We need to praise them based on something that is a challenge to them, when they, you know, gone out of that comfort zone. That's where we praise them. Okay, and because sometimes we praise too much and we praise everything, and then praise, you know, it's I think Nottingham said this, like, praise is like currency. Yes, when there's a lot of it, it just kind of loses it loses its value. Yes, so let's please keep that in mind when they're out of their comfort zone. So where are the tips? What are the tips? Praise the process. You can praise the process and the product, right? Ideally. Praise the process, do not praise the person, okay? This is something that we should eliminate from our praising practices. Praise modifiable aspects. Let's praise things that students can change, right? Let's talk about an action, right? Or something that is within their reach to change. If we're praising aspects that they can't, you know, that they can't really control, what doesn't make sense, okay? Be genuine. We need to praise honestly. Here, genuine is praise honestly. Let's not praise for the sake of praising, okay? If the student didn't do a good job, we're not gonna write that they did a good job. What we could do is recognize positive things that they did, right? And then, you know, connect it to feedback. But just praising, like, good job, excellent, great, that's not going to take us anywhere, take them anywhere. Avoid overpraising. Ask questions, okay? So we can praise and take it further, like, how did you do this? You know, I love how you used these colors in your drawing, right? Used colors in the drawing. So I'm talking about the process in terms of the action. I'm mentioning a strategy, like how you use the colors. How did you do it? Tell me what strategy you use. No, teacher, well, you know, I don't know. Or a teacher actually used a specific sequence of colors, whatever. Yeah, so that takes the conversation further. And be specific. So praise should be connected to feedback, okay? It does not make sense when we only praise and there is no feedback, right? If students are doing a wonderful job, we should provide feedback on what they did well. And if they're not doing a wonderful job, we should provide feedback on what they can do to improve. So that takes us to our next section, which is feedback. And what's important here is, okay, when I'm praising, right, I'm telling the student, I'm expressing positive comments about something, right? But when I'm giving feedback, I'm going further than the positive comments, and I'm telling the student how they can improve. And this is where a lot of educators, where we tend to fail, because our feedback sometimes just stays in the praise. Like, sometimes we're not actually giving them feedback more than just a grade, right? And so, well, there are different ways in which we praise. Haiti and Clark have a book called Visible Feedback, and they asked like 10,000 teachers, or more than 10,000 teachers, you know, how they gave feedback. And these were the most common responses, which are the 10 C's. So we confirm information, we give feedback to confirm that something is being done correctly, we criticize, we correct, we comment, or we give commentaries, like longer, we clarify through feedback, right? Like having a conversation with what students are doing, we clarify, we ask for additional development. So we tell them, okay, like, can you expand a little more here? That's content development. We can talk about pros and cons with students of what they're doing, right? We use specific criterion when we have rubrics, standards, etc. So then sometimes the feedback is based on that. Constructive reflections. How we give feedback could also lead to students reflecting on the process, etc. So what Haiti and Clark say is, okay, we can do all this, but if we're not telling students how they improve, it doesn't really make sense, right? The feedback, remember, has to focus on improvement. I need to tell you as a student, or you need to tell me as a teacher, You need to tell me, okay, thank you for telling me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me how I can do it better. If you're just telling me I'm doing it wrong, I can't do anything with that information, right? Because you're not helping me to do it better. So feedback should be based on clear criteria. That's primarily we should have a rubric, a checklist, right? When we give feedback, the students should have known first what we expected from them of that task, of that activity, etc., right? It should focus on process as praise, right? We praise the process, we give feedback on the process, not on the person. And well, we can talk about the product, of course, but we want to talk about the process, how actions, right? Feedback should be timely. If we're taking forever to give feedback to our students, then by the time they receive it, they're already in a different, they're already in a different activity. So they're like, oh yeah, whatever. So it should be timely. So we should give feedback as fast as possible. I know this is not easy. We have a lot of students, but the ideal is that it should be timely. It should provide information on improvement, of course, and it should be personalized. Even if you have a lot of students, like you have 100 students, the feedback, even if you have a list of comments, for example, because I know teachers who have 100 students, 200 students, have a list of comments. What is personalized is how you choose the comment for that student. It doesn't mean you have to write every comment from scratch, for example, because we need to optimize our time, but we can't give the same feedback to all the students, right? It should be, or we can't know. Of course we can, but we shouldn't. All right? So some tips. You can use feedback stems to guide you, and this is from Brock and Hundley. Because sometimes we're not too sure, like we're learning, right? Of course, we're in a growth mindset, we're learning. So if we use feedback stems, which are like phrases, they can guide me in providing that feedback. No, I noticed how is the keyword here. So here we focus on the process. I noticed how you applied the steps to writing an essay. Great job. However, tell them how they can improve. What did they do wrong, right? Have you considered trying a different strategy to this or that? You're on the right track here and might consider doing this and doing that, right? Or one awesome thing about your work is, so these are some stems that help us, to focus how we're going to write that feedback. Okay. Also, the use of the power of yet. So Carol Dweck, in her work, she talks a lot about, and she actually mentions it as the power of yet, and it is because the word yet is very powerful, right? And here's an example, like you can't, no teacher, I can't learn English, I can't speak in English. Okay, well, you can't speak in English as well as you would like to yet, but how about if you try whatever, and then we give them a strategy so that they can continue improving, right? I'm sure we've all had those students that say, no teacher, I can't, no, right? Like I can't do it. No teacher, that's not for me, I can't do it, okay? So here is where the power of yet, it has a lot of power, okay? The words we use have a lot of power in how our students learn to believe in themselves. Remember mindset, beliefs, believing in themselves and believing in what they can do in their skills, in their abilities, etc. Okay? All right. So here are some of the books that here are the books of what I mentioned in this talk. So Brock and Hundley have a book called In Other Words. It's wonderful. I mentioned Visible Learning Feedback of Patey and Clark. Challenging Mindsets, Nottingham and Larson. These two books were published last year, 2019. Mindset, of course, is the basis of all the work about growth and fixed mindset, the book Carol Dweck published, and the Growth Mindset Coach, which is a book that has a lot of activities for teachers on how to teach about growth mindset in their classes. So with that, I'm done with my intervention, and I want to go into answering questions you might have or comments. This is my Twitter handle if you want to be in touch through Twitter. I also have a website where I blog and I share the work that I do. And well, all right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm going to add Isabel to the conversation. Hi, Isabel.
Hi. Congratulations. That was a great webinar.
Thank you.
So I'm paying attention to all the questions here. So just there is one regarding, I think it was Santiago. He says, is there a place where we can find more phrases to praise students?
A place?
Yeah, I presume it's concerning a book or a resource.
So the book of In Other Words is a book of phrases. Like that one is definitely focused completely on phrases. So I recommend it with Isabel and well, with the research group, we read it and it's really helpful. It really allows us to understand what we're doing wrong, right? That's the first step. Like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like, how have I been speaking like this to my students all my life? But of course, I mean, it's a process of learning and improving and growing. So I would recommend that one. I also, there's a website, also on Instagram, like Big Life Journal, which is also really nice. Yes. And I know Isabel is a fan of Big Life Journal. Yeah. So I'm going to write that in the chat here.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Big Life Journal.
It's a wonderful profile. Big Life Journal. Yes.
And all right. I mean, you can Google phrases also. I mean, every day there's more and more information on, what we can do to say, what we can say, what we should avoid, etc. But the work that we've done is focused on many resources. We've read a lot and we've just taken, because some authors talk about praise, others talk about feedback, others talk about self-talk, others talk about the three, others mention other things. But yeah, definitely, In Other Words, the book is a great option.
Yeah, I agree. Maite Marino asks, do you have other suggestions of videos for this topic to use in the classroom?
Of videos to use? Well, Carol Dweck has done a couple of TED Talks. And so I'm going to write that, like Carol Dweck on TED. Yeah. She's the first person you want to, go to. Yeah, she's the first person you want to go to. But also James Nottingham. He works with Carol Dweck, and he also has wonderful talks, and you can also find them on YouTube. I can't recall a TED Talk by James Nottingham at this moment, but he has done wonderful work. Like, I love his work, and I actually have his books like right here, literally. They live on my desk because he has done wonderful work, him and his co-authors.
Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you so much. Diego Boada, great question, Diego. Thank you. In your experience, what's the biggest obstacle when teachers try to change from a fixed to a growth mindset? I think this is not an easy transition. How have you guys overcome it?
What is the biggest obstacle?
Yeah.
That's right.
There are like a ton of obstacles.
Ego. Yeah. If I had to put it in one word, it's ego.
And how have you overcome it, or us?
Well, I mean, I think like in general for educators, our ego is what, that like in some of the examples that I was giving, like, oh my gosh, are they going to think, what are my colleagues going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm less of an expert if I don't know this? Are they going to think I'm less of an expert if I don't know that, et cetera? How have I have overcome many things reading. I mean, like sitting down and reading about mindset, checking myself, like really doing that reflection, not just I'm just going to read this to see how it works. No, like really doing the activities that they ask, like there are books that tell you, okay, think about this. Now write, what do you think about when this happens? And so I've done the conscious exercise of checking myself, and it's so interesting. I mean, it's interesting to have a community. I don't want to steal concepts from people. This is more in Gasco. They talk about having that we should have a tribe. Yes, that educators should have a tribe so that they can grow. And I think for me, having a tribe of academic colleagues and friends who I can talk, like vent about this with, like, and openly say, oh my gosh, my fixed mindset is telling me this, I'm feeling insecure, this is happening. And then it's like, no, I think that helps a lot. But it's been a process of, self-awareness, of, reflecting. Isabel, I don't know if I know this is like about my work, but obviously we've been working on this together. If you want to maybe share what do you do? Yeah. What have you done? What has helped you?
No, I think when exactly. I think ego is definitely the first thing, and you never get rid of it, right? Like you're always like somehow in a constant dialogue and confrontation with your ego. So I think when you have a tribe, as you said also, and when you also, I think self-awareness and self-knowledge is so important, and mindfulness also, like being aware of your fixed mindset is the best thing that you can develop in this area. Like when you know, okay, that's my fixed mindset talking, like that's when you develop other types of reactions, attitudes, and all of that comes afterwards.
Yeah, and I think like having the, like when you openly have a discourse of mindset, like when you could say, when you feel comfortable, when you're out of that comfort zone, and then you feel comfortable to say, you know what, I'm making a mistake, like I'm making a mistake, this is not right, I'm sorry. Like there's so many things that come with understanding and recognizing the mindsets, and then, making decisions to improve. In this case, we're talking about educators, like what am I going to do to do a better job in the classroom, right?
Yes.
And with my colleagues, not even in the classroom, with my colleagues. Because mindsets, we see the mindsets in the academic, what I mentioned in another talk, like sometimes it's an arena. We don't want it to be an arena, but sometimes the mindsets,
Exactly. And I think Diego is mentioning something very important, bring it to this point. I'll bring it to this point because it's, and then I'll move to the other questions. Diego says, it's different from teachers who work maybe in schools where there's always, where they have always done the same things over and over, which was like something that you mentioned, like the word always is very much a fixed kind of like a statement, and maybe related to the research that you commented on at the beginning. Like we realized that it can change also in teachers from public schools.
Yeah, exactly. I see a comment from Aleida. She's saying saving face. Exactly.
Exactly. Yes.
We have the pressure to save face. Yeah.
I have a couple more questions. So the next one is, with middle school students who have written problems, even in Spanish, what would it be your recommendation?
In terms of feedback, I guess.
Yes. That was Leonel Granada's question. Yes, I guess in terms of feedback.
Okay. Well, if they're having issues, I mean, the first thing is that as educators, that we understand that the errors that they have can be corrected, right? I mean, if we're like, this student is never going to write. If we start labeling them, never going to be a good writer. She's never going to, we start labeling, then our expectations, we don't have high expectations for these students, and students perceive that immediately, and it affects how they actually do the work. So what is the recommendation? Mention specifically, like, okay, what are they doing wrong? Recognize the effort, okay? Praising effort is important. I did not mention it specifically in this talk because I'm talking, but praising effort is important. So we can mention, like, I could really see, I could really notice how you've dedicated time to this writing.
Mm-hmm.
There I'm praising and I'm mentioning the effort, the action of effort, right? And then I go into, however, there are some spelling, like, I don't know, there are some spelling rules that you can work on. Let's tell them what the rules are. Let's highlight them. Right? Because if we're just like, however, your spelling could improve. Where? If we don't say where, they're not going to improve it, right? And it also has to do with how we're correcting. Like, are we writing the corrections for them, or are we highlighting them so that students can think, look at the errors that are highlighted and say, ooh, I need to check this.
Yeah.
And the teacher's not doing the work for me. So that would be like my recommendation.
Yes, and I think it's very much linked to Omar Roa's question, which was about evaluation. I think that was very much linked to that one. And we have, I think, one last question from John. He says, from a psychological point of view, do some teachers have a fixed mindset as a means of self-protection from what others may think about them?
Well, absolutely. I mean, do teachers? No, do people? Remember, we have both of these minds. We all have a fixed mindset. I mean, I think, I don't know if there's anyone who could say, I don't care what people think about me, or I don't care. Of course, we could brush it off, but if we care. Everybody has that fixed mindset when someone is criticizing you, when someone is saying something about you that worries you, because obviously you want to be likable, you want to get along with the people you work with. I mean, so many things. I'm talking from experience, of course. I'm not a psychologist, right? So, I mean, we are not psychologists. The work comes from psychology, but we're focusing on education and what educators say about mindset in education, right? So, yeah, definitely, of course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The question is, are you willing to face yourself and deal with that and recognize that there are things, that there are situations where we take actions because that fixed mindset is coming out and telling us, no, don't do that. You're going to look bad, or do we want to take challenges, etc.?
Excellent. Okay. I think we have time for one more question. So there are like 3 questions about feedback. And I think with you can like gather some of them so in one same answer. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of giving feedback? And then Diana Salazar is asking if you have conducted growth mindset feedback using questions.
Okay, so advantages and disadvantages of giving feedback. Well, I wouldn't say giving feedback has any disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I wouldn't say it has a disadvantage. What could happen, or what has happened in terms of giving feedback that is thoughtful, that is focused on the process, is that it takes time. It's time consuming. So if we're talking about, I would never say there's a disadvantage in feedback, but I would say if you had to think of like some aspects that are not too cool, is that it takes you more time, of course. But in the end, the time that you spend on giving that feedback, you're going to see the effect at the end of the semester, the year, the bimester, because if your feedback was with good quality, you don't have to go back, right? Because sometimes what we do is that we don't give quality feedback because we don't have time, right? Or because we didn't know how to do it. Right? I mean, we follow models. That could be, right? But then we see ourselves in the same, like, oh my God, why is he making the same? Why is the spelling again? Like, did I tell him or her that was what he or she had to do? Maybe not. So, like how we would say in Spanish, unas por otras, right? Like, but definitely, like time here, anything that is in quality requires time, period. We need to dedicate time. We want to give good feedback. We need to put the time. The other question was, sorry, can you remind me of?
If you have used feedback, if you have given feedback using questions, growth mindset feedback using questions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and how? Yeah, Diana goes further. How would you do that?
So it really depends on what it is that you're. I mean, obviously, I'm in a process. I'm not going to say here everything I do. I praise all the time with the, thinking of the process. No, because we have fixed things that we tend to do, and then what I do is that I check myself. I check myself and I'm like, oh, wait, I need to, I'm constantly checking how I could do this better. But it really depends on what you're giving feedback on. So some things to clarify, or something that, like the example of, I love what you did with this, can you tell me how you did it? Can you tell me what strategy you used? Can you tell me what tool you used? This is awesome. So then that goes, that shows the student, hey, I made a good decision using this tool. Yes, that's what the student is understanding when we make questions. Although questions could be focused in different ways for clarification, etc. But that's just one example. I'm trying to make more questions. Yes, like that. I'm in that process of giving more feedback and adding more questions into my feedback. I think, Isabel, our time is up. I'm gonna add Jair to the stream, and then 6 on the dot. So Jair, I'm going to add you right now. There you go.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. And well, I want to thank everybody for connecting. I and my tribe who's connected here. You know who you are. All the tribe that is in the chat and that's supporting this work with mindset that I think is so important. Thank you for your questions. We can stay in touch if you have questions. My Twitter handle at Marta Ramirez Co. You can write to me through Twitter. You can write to me to my email, contacto@martaramirez.com.co. I'll write that in the chat. But the idea is to keep the conversation going. This is an important topic, and mindset goes a lot further than just communication. But just communication showed us in the research that it had a big effect on how teachers were acting and what they were doing and their own beliefs with their self-talk. So thank you very much. Go ahead, Jair.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much. And of course, thank you, Isabel, for coming back. Hopefully, we're going to still continue taking advantage of your times. I know it is very limited, but hopefully we could have you around. Well, I mean, everyone learned a lot from your talk. And we can see, as you said, this is not only about a conversation. This is not about feedback. This is about education. And we are talking among educators here. So this is not a topic. This is something that actually has to do with education. So I guess we all learned a lot. Hopefully we can put it into practice, not only in these times of virtuality, but also once we're back to reality, we can do it. Because as you said, it is not about what we say, but how we say it. Yeah. So I guess we all learned a lot. So once again, thank you very much. Super interesting.
Thank you. And thanks to ASOCOPI for having me. And thank you, Isa, for your support in this process. Thank you, everybody.
No problem. Thank you. I will see you guys around. And don't forget, next time is going to be Thursday afternoon. We have another great speaker as well. We're gonna have Katie Ramirez, and she's gonna share with us something. I don't want to tell you what it is, so please look for the answers in the website. Wait for the emails, and also check the Facebook account of ASOCOPI. Everywhere it's gonna be advertised. Next speaker is Katie Ramirez. Thank you very much to all of you. Have a good afternoon. Please stay safe. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.